The recruitment hall smelled like burnt circuits and desperation. Krix'tal stood at attention, all four of her arms locked behind her carapace, watching the newest batch of wannabe shock troopers file into the simulation chamber. 17 species represented. 43 recruits total. The Vornathi drill instructor, Sergeant Bracknoth, was already pacing like a caged predator, his scales clicking against the metal floor with each deliberate step. "Listen up, you sorry excuses for soldiers." Bracknoth's voice could crack durasteel. "What you're about to experience is the Earth simulation. Category 9, Death World Scenario. Gravity, 0.98 standard. Atmospheric composition, nitrogen, oxygen, trace elements that will make your ancestors weep." A nervous laugh rippled through the formation. Krix'tal didn't join in. She'd done her research. "Oh, you think that's funny?" Bracknoth's eye stalks swiveled toward Aquilian in the back row. "Let me clarify something for your underdeveloped neural clusters. In 300 cycles of running this simulation, across thousands of recruits from the finest military academies in the Galactic Concordance, exactly 0 have passed. None. Zilch. Not a single sentient being has survived the full scenario." Krix'tal felt her secondary heart skip a beat. Her primary heart kept its steady rhythm, though. She'd expected this. "The simulation parameters are simple," Bracknoth continued, his tone dripping with what might have been amusement or contempt. "Hard to tell with Vornathi. You will be dropped into a hostile environment modeled after Earth's most dangerous regions. You will face indigenous life forms, you will encounter environmental hazards, and you will experience what it means to fight against a species that evolved on a world actively trying to kill them every single day for 4 billion years. A hexapod named Vrillix raised one of his appendages. "Instructor, if nobody passes, what's the point?" "The point, recruit, is to teach you humility. The point is to show you that no matter how advanced we think we are, no matter how sophisticated our technology or tactics, there are beings in this universe who are forged in conditions we can barely simulate. The humans didn't develop space travel because they were smart. They developed it because their planet gave them 2 options: evolve or die." Bracknoth's scales rippled with colors. Krix'tal's translator couldn't quite process. Probably profanity. "Now, who wants to go first?" Silence. The kind of silence that happens when everyone suddenly finds the floor fascinating. Krix'tal raised her primary right arm. Every eye stalk, optical sensor, and compound eye turned toward her. Bracknoth's face did something that might have been a smile if you were feeling generous. If you weren't, it looked like he'd just discovered a new way to cause pain. "Well, well, well. The Thexlar volunteer. Tell me, recruit, what's your designation?" "Krix'tal, Instructor. Tactical Analysis Division, 3rd Quadrant Academy." Tactical analysis. How precious. Bracknoth moved closer, and Krix'tal could smell the protein paste on his breath. "You think your fancy algorithms and probability matrices are going to help you in there?" "No, Instructor." That caught him off guard. His eye stalks retracted slightly. "Then why volunteer?" "Because someone has to go first, Instructor. Might as well be the one who's spent the last 6 months studying everything available about human combat psychology, Earth's ecosystem, and the documented encounters with Terran military forces." A murmur ran through the other recruits. Bracknoth's scales shifted to a deep purple. "Studying, she says. Let me tell you something about studying humans, recruit. I've got 17 medals, 3 commendations, and 40 years of combat experience across 12 different war zones. I helped design this simulation. I've watched it break recruits from species that hunted across methane seas and survived radiation storms that would glass an entire continent. And you think 6 months of reading reports is going to make a difference? I think it's better than going in blind, Instructor." Laughter. Actual laughter from some of the other recruits. Krix'tal kept her focus forward. Bracknoth's expression shifted again. This time it was definitely a smile, and that was somehow worse. All right, tactical genius, let's see what you've got. Everyone else? Observation deck. You're going to want to watch this. It typically takes about 4 minutes before the screaming starts. The simulation chamber was a perfect cube, 50 meters on each side, lined with holographic projectors capable of rendering environments down to the molecular level. Krix'tal stepped onto the platform in the center, feeling the neural interface helmet settle onto her cranial ridge. The weight was substantial, pressing down with a reminder that this wasn't just a game. Through the observation window, she could see the other recruits filing into the viewing area. Bracknoth stood at the control console, his claws dancing over the inputs. Final check? Recruit. You can back out now. No shame in admitting you're not ready. I'm ready, Instructor. Your funeral. Initiating Earth Simulation, Protocol 7. Environment: temperate forest. North American continent. Pre-industrial human settlement, nearby. Scenario begins in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved. When it reformed, Krix'tal was standing in what her tactical analysis division would have classified as a moderate threat environment. Trees, massive ones by galactic standards, stretched up toward a sky that was an almost painful shade of blue. The air was thick, heavy with moisture and oxygen levels that made her respiratory systems work overtime. And the sounds. Oh, the sounds. Chirping, buzzing, rustling, calls from creatures she couldn't see. Earth was loud. Her standard-issue plasma rifle materialized in her primary hands. Basic combat armor covered her carapace. The mission parameters appeared in her visual overlay. Survive for 1 standard hour. Locate and secure the extraction point. Avoid detection by indigenous life forms. Should be simple. Should be. Krix'tal checked her tactical scanner. Multiple life signs, ranging from small to concerning. Nothing immediately hostile. Ayudia. Himtakta. She began moving through the undergrowth, her training kicking in automatically. Stay low. Watch your angles. Control your breathing. A branch snapped behind her. She spun, rifle up, scanning for targets. Nothing. Just trees and shadows, and that incessant noise. Auditory hallucination, she muttered to herself. Common in high-stress scenarios. Focus. She continued forward, making her way toward the extraction point coordinates. The forest seemed to close in around her, the canopy blocking out more of that blue sky. Her secondary hearts were racing now, pumping combat stimulants through her system. Something moved in her peripheral vision. Fast. Too fast to track. Krix'tal dropped to a crouch, rifle sweeping the area. Her scanner showed nothing. No heat signatures, no movement. But she'd seen something. Simulation glitch, she whispered. Has to be. A sound. Different from the others. A low growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Her tactical training screamed at her to run. Her academic curiosity demanded she investigate. She compromised by backing slowly toward a large tree, keeping her weapon ready. The growl came again. Closer. Then she saw it, emerging from the shadows like a piece of nightmare-given flesh. 4 legs, powerful muscles moving under a coat of brown and gray fur, eyes that reflected the dim light with an intelligence that made her blood run cold. Teeth. So many teeth. A wolf. Canis lupus, her database supplied helpfully. Pack hunter. Apex predator. Estimated bite force. Sufficient to crush bone. Just a simulation, Krix'tal reminded herself. Just a simulation. The wolf tilted its head, studying her. Then, from behind her, another growl. She risked a glance back. 2 more wolves? No. 3. They were surrounding her. Okay, not ideal. Her finger tightened on the trigger. 1 plasma bolt would vaporize a wolf. The others would scatter. Simple solution. Except Her tactical analysis was screaming at her. Something wasn't right. Wolves were smart, but they were animals. They shouldn't be coordinating this well. They shouldn't be showing this much patience. Unless, oh no. The realization hit her the same moment the first wolf lunged. She fired, the plasma bolt catching it mid-leap and reducing it to ash. But it was a distraction. The others attacked from different angles, moving with precision that spoke of intelligence, of planning, of pack tactics. Krix'tal rolled left, firing as she moved. Caught one wolf in the shoulder. It yelped, but didn't stop. She felt claws rake across her armor, heard the screech of metal on metal. Her secondary left arm grabbed a knife from her belt, slashing at the wolf, trying to get to her throat. She kicked hard, connected with solid mass, heard something crack. One wolf down. Two left. No, wait. The scanner was lighting up with new contacts. More were coming. This isn't right, she shouted to no one. Wolves don't hunt in groups this large. They don't coordinate like this. But they did. They were. And she was running out of ammunition. A new sound cut through the chaos. A whistle. Sharp, controlled, purposeful. The wolves stopped. Just stopped. Mid-attack, they disengaged, backing away from Krix'tal and turning their attention to the source of the whistle. A human stepped into the clearing. Krix'tal's breath caught. She'd seen images, of course, video feeds, holographic reconstructions, but seeing one in person, even in simulation, was different. They were smaller than she expected. This one stood maybe 1.7 meters tall, covered in primitive clothing made from animal hides and woven plant fibers. Hair the color of autumn leaves, gathered back from a face that showed no fear whatsoever. The human whistled again, and the wolves moved to her side. Not attacking, not threatening. Obeying. You have got to be kidding me, Krix'tal muttered. The human spoke. The translator in Krix'tal's helmet struggled for a moment, then provided a rough translation. You're on our land. Leave now, or my friends will finish what they started. Your friends? You're controlling them? A smile. Definitely a smile. Humans did that when they were amused or about to do something dangerous. Sometimes, both. Controlling? No. We're partners. We hunt together. We protect each other. They're my pack. Krix'tal's tactical analysis systems were having a complete meltdown. Everything she'd learned, every report she'd studied, had mentioned human tool use, human adaptability, human stubbornness. But nobody had mentioned this. Nobody had mentioned that humans could form cooperative bonds with apex predators from their own world. I'm just trying to reach the extraction point, Krix'tal said, trying to keep her voice steady. I don't want conflict. Too late for that. You killed one of ours. The human's expression hardened. That has consequences. The wolves growled in unison, a sound that resonated in Krix'tal's bones. I was defending myself. You invaded our territory, brought weapons of fire and death, and you wonder why we respond with force? The human took a step forward. Let me teach you something about Earth, invader. Here, everything is connected. The trees, the animals, the soil, the sky. We don't conquer nature. We're part of it. And right now, nature thinks you're a threat. Krix'tal raised her rifle. I will defend myself. Will you? The human's smile widened. Your weapon has maybe 3 shots left. I have 7 wolves. And behind them, about 40 meters north, there's a bear, who's very curious about the noise we're making. Ever fought a grizzly? The scanner confirmed it. Massive heat signature. Moving closer. This is insane. You're just a human. Pre-industrial. You shouldn't even have encountered alien life. Shouldn't have. Did anyway. You're not the first to try Earth simulation. Won't be the last. The human crouched down, placing a hand on the nearest wolf's head. We remember every attempt. Every failed invasion. Every species that thought they could walk into our home and take what they wanted. Failed invasion? This is a simulation. Is it? The human's eyes met hers. Or, is this a memory? A warning? A promise of what happens when you underestimate Earth? The ground shook. The bear was getting closer. Krix'tal could hear it now. A sound like rolling thunder wrapped in fur and fury. Last chance, the human said. Run! Leave our forest! Fail your test! Or stay and find out why no one passes Earth simulation. Krix'tal's tactical analysis gave her the odds. Fight. 0.3% chance of survival. Run. 12%. Surrender. The forest itself seemed alive, hostile, determined to slow her down. Behind her, she could hear the wolves howling, the bear roaring, the human's laughter mixing with the chaos. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. The extraction point was close, just another 100 meters, 50 and 20. She burst into the clearing and saw the evacuation beacon, slapped her hand against it. The world started to dissolve. In the last moment before the simulation ended, she looked back. The human stood at the edge of the clearing, wolves at her side, the bear's massive form visible behind her. They weren't attacking, just watching, waiting. The human raised one hand, a wave, a gesture that could have meant goodbye, or see you soon, or we're not done. Then, Krix'tal was back in the simulation chamber, gasping for breath, her armor scarred and dented, her weapons depleted. Brocknoth stood at the console, his expression unreadable. Time elapsed, 14 minutes, 37 seconds. Status: mission failed. Extraction achieved through retreat. Analysis: recruit demonstrated adequate survival instincts but failed to complete primary objectives. Krix'tal pulled off the helmet with trembling hands. Instructor: that wasn't. The parameters said, avoid detection. It said nothing about humans controlling the wildlife. It said nothing about cooperative hunting between species. It said survive. You survived. That's more than most do on their first attempt. Brocknoth's scales shifted to a lighter shade. The Earth simulation adapts. It learns. Every time someone enters, it gets smarter. Because that's what Earth does. It adapts. It survives. It wins. Through the observation window, Krix'tal could see the other recruits staring at her. Some with respect. Some with fear. Most with the dawning realization that they were going to have to face this too. Instructor? Permission to speak freely? Granted. That human, she said. She remembered other attempts. Other species. How is that possible in a simulation? Brocknoth's laugh was like gravel in a blender. Who said it was just a simulation? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The Earth simulation is based on real encounters, real scenarios, real humans. We've been studying them for decades, recruit, trying to understand what makes them so dangerous. Every test, every scenario, we learn something new. And every time, without fail, they remind us why their planet is classified as a Category 9 death world. He pulled up a holographic display. Combat statistics, survival rates, threat assessments, all pointing to the same conclusion. Humans don't just survive hostile environments. They thrive in them. They bond with creatures that should be their predators. They turn entire ecosystems into allies. They look at a world trying to kill them and say, not today, with a smile on their faces. Krix'tal stared at the data, her mind racing. So what do we do? How do we pass? That's the question, isn't it? Brocknoth gestured to the simulation chamber. 300 cycles, thousands of recruits, 0 successes. Maybe the test isn't about passing. Maybe it's about understanding. Understanding that there are some species, some worlds, some forces in this universe that you don't conquer. You respect them. You learn from them. Or you end up as a cautionary tale. He moved closer, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. You did better than most, Krix'tal. You recognized the threat. You adapted. You survived. That's not nothing. But if you want to truly pass, if you want to succeed where everyone else has failed, you need to stop thinking like a soldier. Stop thinking like a conqueror. Start thinking like a human, Krix'tal finished. Exactly. And that, recruit, is the hardest thing any of us will ever do. The observation deck doors opened. The next recruit stepped forward. Aquilian, the same one who'd laughed earlier. His confidence seemed somewhat diminished now. Who's next? Brocknoth called out. The Quellian raised a tentacle, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with what might have been courage or stupidity. Hard to tell sometimes. Krix'tal moved to the observation deck, taking her place among the other recruits. She kept her eyes on the simulation chamber, watching as the Quellian stepped onto the platform, watching as the world dissolved and reformed into that impossible forest. She'd survived 14 minutes, learned that wolves could be partners, seen a human smile in the face of superior firepower, failed every objective except the most basic one, living. And somewhere, in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered, Next time will be different. Next time, I'll understand. Next time, I'll pass. The Quellian screaming started at the 3-minute mark. Krix'tal settled in to watch, to learn, to prepare. Because if humans could turn a death world into a home, could turn predators into family, could stand against the universe with nothing but determination and that terrifying smile, then maybe, just maybe, the rest of them could learn to do the impossible too. The simulation continued. The failures mounted, and Earth kept its secrets. One impossible lesson at a time. 6 weeks later, Krix'tal stood outside Brocknoth's office, her primary hands clutching a data slate covered in notes, diagrams, and what the other recruits had started calling her obsession. The door slid open before she could knock. I was wondering when you'd show up, Brocknoth said, not looking up from his own terminal. Most recruits try again after 2 weeks. Some give up entirely. But you? You disappeared into the archives like a Vrelnax into a data stream. I needed to understand, Instructor. Understanding and surviving are two different things, Krix'tal. He finally looked at her, his eye stalks narrowing. What did you find that you think will make a difference? She stepped inside, activating her data slate. Holographic images filled the air between them. Human settlements, human agriculture, human art, human laughter, captured in primitive photographs. I found out I was asking the wrong questions. Brocknoth's scales rippled with curiosity. Explain. Every report, every tactical analysis, every military assessment focuses on human combat capabilities, their aggression, their adaptability in warfare, their refusal to surrender. Krix'tal swiped through the images faster now, showing children playing, families gathering, communities building. But nobody asks why they fight, what they're protecting, what makes them say no to a hostile universe. Poetry won't help you in the simulation. It's not poetry. It's strategy. She pulled up a new file, this one showing ecological data. Humans don't dominate their environment through force. They integrate, they observe, they learn the patterns and work within them. That woman in the forest, the one with the wolves, she wasn't controlling them. She was part of their pack. She spoke their language, understood their needs, became one of them. So, you want to make friends with simulation wolves? Touching. No, Instructor. I want to stop being an invader. Krix'tal met his gaze directly. Every recruit who enters that simulation does so as an outsider, an alien threat. The environment responds accordingly. But what if someone entered as something else? Not a conqueror, not a soldier, just someone trying to understand? Brocknoth was quiet for a long moment. His claws tapped against his desk, a rhythm that might have been thoughtful or irritated. You want to change the fundamental approach to the scenario. I want to pass, Instructor. And I think I finally know how. The simulation has been beaten into your memory at this point. You know the terrain. You know the threats. That gives you an unfair advantage. Then randomize it. Change the parameters. Drop me somewhere new. Krix'tal's secondary hearts were racing, but her voice stayed steady. I'm not asking for an easier test. I'm asking for permission to try a different answer. Brachnoth stood, moving to the window overlooking the training grounds. Below, recruits ran obstacle courses, practiced combat drills, prepared for wars that might never come. Do you know why we run this simulation, Krix'tal? The real reason? To humble us, to show us we're not invincible. Partially. But there's more. He turned back to her. Humanity petitioned for Concordance membership 17 years ago. The Council is still debating. Some members think humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They want to quarantine Earth, keep them isolated until they're deemed safe. Krix'tal's translator struggled with the emotion in his voice. Others think we should recruit them, bring them into our military, turn their natural talents toward protecting the Concordance instead of just their own world. Brachnoth's scales shifted through a rainbow of colors. This simulation? It's not just training, it's a test case. Proof that humans are either too alien to integrate or exactly what we need. Every failure reinforces the first argument. Every recruit who can't adapt proves humans are incompatible with the rest of us. But if someone passes, it proves we can understand them, work with them, learn from them. He moved closer. It proves they're not monsters or gods, just people. Dangerous people, yes, but people nonetheless. The weight of it settled on Krix'tal's shoulders. This wasn't about her anymore. It wasn't about pride or academic achievement or proving herself to the other recruits. When can I try again? Brachnoth's laugh was sharp. Right now. But Krix'tal? If you fail this time, I'm pulling you from combat training, recommending you for analysis duty. You're too valuable to break. Understood, Instructor? One more thing. He pulled up a new file on his terminal. I'm authorizing Protocol 12, full randomization, new environment, new threats, and one additional parameter, first contact scenario. Her secondary hearts skipped. First contact? You'll be dropped into a situation where humans have never encountered alien life. How you approach them, how you communicate, how you prove you're not a threat. That's on you. No weapons, no armor, just your wits and whatever you learned from staring at data files for 6 weeks. No weapons at all? Humans managed to survive their world for millions of years before they invented plasma rifles. I think you can handle a few hours. His expression softened slightly. This is your chance, recruit. Don't waste it. The simulation chamber felt different this time. Maybe it was the lack of armor, the absence of weapons weighing down her limbs. Maybe it was the knowledge that 43 other recruits were watching from the observation deck, waiting to see if she'd prove them all wrong or just provide more entertaining footage of failure. Krix'tal centered herself, focusing on her breathing. The neural helmet settled into place. Protocol 12, authorized. Brachnoth's voice came through the speakers. Environment, coastal region, Earth's southern hemisphere. Time period, early agrarian civilization, human settlement detected. Your mission, establish peaceful contact, survive for 2 standard hours. And Krix'tal? Try not to start any wars. No promises, Instructor. The world dissolved. Salt air hit her first. Sharp, clean, carrying scents she couldn't identify, but somehow knew were ocean and life and growth. Krix'tal opened her eyes to a beach that stretched in both directions. White sand, meeting blue water in a rhythm older than civilization. Behind her, cliffs rose up, covered in vegetation that hung down like nature's curtains. Ahead, carved into the cliff face, She could see structures. Human dwellings, primitive but purposeful, arranged in a pattern that spoke of community and planning. Smoke rose from several locations. Cooking fires, probably. Her stomach clenched. She hadn't eaten before the simulation, hadn't thought about how hunger might affect her performance. Focus. Observe. Understand. Movement near the water. Krix'tal dropped low, not hiding exactly, but making herself less obvious. A group of humans emerged from the dwellings, carrying nets and baskets. Fishing expedition. They moved with practiced efficiency, calling to each other in languages her translator couldn't quite parse yet. She watched them work, noticed how they checked the sky, the water, the wind, reading their environment like she'd read tactical displays. One of them, smaller than the others, maybe a juvenile, laughed at something. The sound carried across the beach, pure and unself-conscious. They're just people, Krix'tal reminded herself. Not soldiers, not threats, just people living their lives. Her appearance wasn't exactly designed to put humans at ease. 4 arms, chitinous carapace, eyes that covered half her face. She looked like something from their nightmares, unless she began gathering materials. Driftwood, shells, seaweed, anything that might serve as tools or offerings. Her academic training kicked in, remembering anthropological studies of first contact scenarios, universal principles. Demonstrate intelligence without threat, show respect for their space, offer something of value. By the time the fishing party returned to shore, Krix'tal had arranged a display on the sand. Geometric patterns made from shells, a simple water filter constructed from rocks and woven grass, a pile of edible seaweed, sorted by type. Then she retreated behind a large rock formation and waited. The humans noticed her work within minutes. She heard their voices rise in pitch, excitement or alarm, hard to tell. They gathered around her creations, pointing, discussing, carefully not touching. One of them, an older female with gray streaking through her dark hair, knelt beside the water filter, studied it, understood it, looked up, scanning the beach. "We know you're there," she called out. The translator finally found its footing, rendering the words in standard concordance. "We can see your tracks. 4 legs, walking upright. Nothing on this island makes tracks like that." Krix'tal's breath caught. They were smarter than the parameters suggested. Of course they were. If you mean harm, you would have attacked while we fished. If you mean to hide, you wouldn't have left gifts. The woman stood, her posture open but alert. "Show yourself. Let's talk like civilized beings." Civilized. They considered themselves civilized. Good sign. Krix'tal stepped out from behind the rocks. The humans reacted exactly as expected. Gasps, weapons raised, crude spears, and fishing implements turned toward her. But they didn't attack. The older woman raised a hand, and the others lowered their weapons slightly. She took 3 steps forward, her eyes never leaving Krix'tal. "You made these?" she asked, gesturing to the shell patterns. Krix'tal nodded. Then, remembering humans might not understand the gesture, spoke. "Yes, gifts. To show, I mean no harm." "You speak our language?" "I have a device that translates. I'm still learning your words." "A device." The woman's expression was unreadable. "You're not from here. Not from any land we know. No, I come from very far away. From beyond the sky." Murmurs from the other humans. Fear, mixed with wonder. The woman silenced them with a look. "The sky," she says. "The stars?" Her smile was cautious. "We tell stories of beings from the stars. Warnings, mostly. Things that take children in the night. Gods who demand sacrifice. And I don't want your children or your sacrifices." Krix'tal kept her hands visible, all 4 of them. "I want to understand, to learn, to prove that beings from different worlds can meet without violence." Noble goals. But words are easy. Actions show truth. The woman studied Krix'tal's face, or what passed for a face. You look frightened. I am. Good. Fear means you're smart. Means you respect what could happen here. She turned to the others, spoke rapidly in a dialect the translator couldn't follow. They argued briefly, then nodded. My name is Mira. I lead this community. These are my people. We've survived storms, droughts, and creatures that would happily eat us. We're still here because we're careful. And clever. And because we know when to trust and when to fight. I'm Krix'tal. I'm a soldier in training. Or, I was. Right now I'm just someone trying to pass a test. A test? Mira's laugh was sharp. Your people test you by sending you to meet strangers? Interesting teaching method. My people want to know if we can understand yours, if we can work together, if we're too different, or if there's common ground. And if you fail this test? Krix'tal hesitated. Then my people might decide yours are too dangerous, might isolate your world, keep you separate from the rest of the galaxy. The other humans reacted to that, voices rising. Mira silenced them again. So, our future depends on you passing a test. No pressure. She walked closer, close enough that Krix'tal could see the scars on her hands, the weathering on her face. What do you need from us? To survive here for 2 hours. To prove I can exist among you without causing harm or being harmed. 2 hours. That's all? That's everything. Mira considered this, looked back at her people, looked at the gifts Krix'tal had left. Made a decision. All right, Star Traveler. You want to understand humans? Let's show you who we are. But you work for your safety. We don't carry the useless. She gestured toward the village. Come, help us prepare the evening meal. Earn your place at our fire. The next hour passed in a blur of activity that would have seemed mundane to the humans, but felt revolutionary to Krix'tal. She helped gather firewood, her 4 arms proving surprisingly useful. Learned to gut fish under the patient instruction of a young man named Torin, who laughed every time she flinched at the smell. Discovered that human children were simultaneously terrified and fascinated by her, staying just out of reach, but creeping closer whenever she wasn't looking. Mira watched it all with those sharp eyes, saying little but missing nothing. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in colors Krix'tal had no names for. The community gathered around the fire. Food was distributed with careful fairness. Stories were told, though Krix'tal could only catch fragments through her translator. Laughter rose into the evening air. She sat at the edge of the circle, neither fully included nor excluded, observing, learning. A small human, maybe 5 years old by her estimate, approached with the fearless curiosity of the very young. She held out something, a shell, polished smooth by the ocean. For you, the child said. Pretty. Krix'tal took it carefully with her secondary right hand. Thank you. It's beautiful. You're pretty too. Weird, but pretty. The child giggled and ran back to her mother. Mira appeared beside her, settling onto the sand with a grace that belied her age. They're accepting you. That's rare. Usually takes weeks for outsiders to be trusted. I'm hardly an outsider. I'm an alien. A monster. Monster is just a word for something we don't understand yet. Mira poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks dancing upward. You came here alone, unarmed, bearing gifts. You worked alongside us without complaint. You were gentle with our children. These things matter more than how many arms you have. Your people are remarkable. We're survivors, same as you, I suspect. She looked directly at Krix'tal. This test of yours, you're going to pass. How do you know? Because you already understand the most important thing about humans. We're not conquered. We're invited. We don't submit to force. We respond to respect. Mira's smile was knowing. Your people want to know if we can coexist? The answer is yes, but only if you approach us as equals. partners, not subjects to be managed or threats to be neutralized. Krix'tal felt something shift inside her, understanding clicking into place like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. We've been approaching this all wrong, probably. Most powerful beings do. Mira stood, brushing sand from her clothes. Your 2 hours are almost up. But before you go back to your star home, let me give you something. She walked to one of the dwellings and returned with a small wrapped bundle. Inside was a knife, beautifully crafted from stone and bone, the handle wrapped in leather. This has been in my family for 6 generations. It's killed food and defended children and built homes. It's a tool and a weapon, and a symbol of who we are. She pressed it into Krix'tal's hands. Take it. Show your people. Let them know that humans make things that last, that we value craftsmanship and legacy, and the bonds between generations. I can't take this. It's too valuable. Which is exactly why you must. A gift freely given. A bridge between worlds. Mira's eyes gleamed in the firelight. Pass your test, Krix'tal. Tell them about us. Not as threats, or primitives, or gods. Just as people who love our children and laugh at jokes and make beautiful things from stone and bone, the world started to shimmer. Time was up. Thank you, Krix'tal managed, for everything. Thank you for asking before taking. That's rarer than you'd think. Mira raised her hand in farewell. Safe travels, star friend. Come back someday. Bring your people. We'll teach them to fish. The simulation dissolved. Krix'tal stood in the chamber, the neural helmet sliding off, her hands clutching a knife that shouldn't exist outside the simulation, but somehow did. Solid. Real. Proof. Brocknoth stood at the console, his expression cycling through emotions faster than she could track. Status, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Mission accomplished. 2 hours survived. Peaceful contact established. Cultural exchange initiated. And somehow, impossibly, you brought back a physical artifact from a holographic simulation. How is that possible? It shouldn't be. The simulation is photons and force fields and neural manipulation. Nothing more. He moved closer, examining the knife without touching it. Unless the simulation is more than we thought. Unless it's connected to something real. Someone real. The implications hung in the air like smoke. Congratulations, recruit. You're the first, being in 300 cycles to pass the Earth simulation. Brocknoth's scales flashed brilliant gold. You've proven that humans and the Concordance can coexist. That understanding is possible. That we're not so different after all. Through the observation window, Krix'tal could see the other recruits. Silent. Awed. The Quilian, who'd failed so quickly, was staring at her like she'd just walked through a wall. What happens now, Instructor? Now? Now we change everything. Brocknoth pulled up files, sending them across the network to a dozen different departments. This knife goes to analysis. Your methods go into the training protocols. And you, Krix'tal, get to write a very interesting report for the Concordance Council. Saying what? Saying that humanity isn't a threat to be contained or a weapon to be wielded. They're potential allies, partners, teachers, even, if we're smart enough to learn. He smiled, a real smile this time, saying that a Thexlar recruit, with too much curiosity and not enough sense, figured out what centuries of military analysis couldn't. That the key to understanding humans isn't studying their capacity for violence, it's recognizing their capacity for connection. Krix'tal looked down at the knife in her hands. 6 generations of human history. A gift from one world to another. A promise of what could be. Do you think they'll listen? The council? Honestly, I don't know. Politics are complicated. Fear is powerful. Change is hard. Brocknoth's expression softened. But you've given them proof. What they do with it is up to them. And, if they choose isolation, if they decide to quarantine Earth, then we'll know we failed. Not because humans are incompatible with galactic civilization, but because we weren't brave enough to accept them as they are. He gestured toward the chamber. Want to go again? Try a different scenario? You've got momentum now. Krix'tal shook her head. No, Instructor. I learned what I needed to learn. The simulation isn't about conquest or survival or proving superiority. It's about recognition, seeing the humanity in humans, the personhood in people. Once you understand that, the rest is just details. Spoken like someone who's earned her rest. Dismissed, recruit. Get some food, some sleep. Tomorrow we start preparing your presentation to the council. And Krix'tal? Yes, Instructor? I'm proud of you. You did something today that most beings couldn't imagine. You built a bridge where everyone else saw only a wall. That takes courage, and wisdom, and a stubbornness that would make a human proud. She left the simulation chamber with the knife tucked carefully in her gear, Mira's words echoing in her memory. Come back someday. Bring your people. We'll teach them to fish. The other recruits parted as she walked past. Some offered congratulations. Others just stared. The Quillian blocked her path, his bioluminescent patterns swirling with something that might have been respect. How did you do it? He asked. I stopped trying to beat them, started trying to understand them. That simple? That complicated? Krix'tal smiled, or did her best approximation. Want to know the secret? Humans aren't the challenge. We are. Our assumptions, our fear, our inability to see past the surface, to the people underneath. So the simulation isn't testing us against humans. It's testing us against ourselves. Now you're getting it. She walked on, out of the training facility and into the evening air. Above, stars glittered in patterns that suddenly seemed less like tactical positions and more like possibilities. Somewhere up there was Earth. Somewhere, Mira was telling stories by a fire. Somewhere, a child was polishing shells for a stranger who might return. Krix'tal touched the knife at her belt and made a promise to pass this forward, to fight for understanding, to prove that different worlds, different species, different ways of being could exist together without violence or fear. The simulation was over. The real test was just beginning. And for the first time since joining the military, Krix'tal felt ready for whatever came next. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. Not from tactical manuals or combat training or strategic analysis, from a group of humans who'd accepted a four-armed alien at their fire and taught her that connection was stronger than any weapon. She looked up at the stars and smiled. Come back someday, Mira had said. Count on it, Krix'tal thought. Count on it.